Welcome to the startup competition. We are looking today, because, you know, our vision is technology empowers humanity. So today we are actually looking for the company who uses technology to empower us and also, you know, save our planet. So as we said before, it's an interactive conference. We have an amazing jury. They're going to present themselves in a second. But you are also a part of the jury. So please use the app, use the e9.community and vote. The one, you know, startup you like the most, your employee or whatever technology you like today and will like really amaze you, please support the guys. We have 2 sessions, one now, another one at 3:30, again here, and then after the closing keynote, the award is going to be presented in the keynote stage. Okay, so let's start. First startup, good luck, is German Bionic.
Thank you.
Yeah. And our jury, Dominic from Acton, a venture capitalist today. Kevin, an entrepreneur from Magic Miracles.
No, Miracle Messages.
I'm always getting it wrong.
Miracle was the right thing.
The Miracles, yes. And Eva from AWS. Let's go.
When you think of Industry 4.0, what do you think of first? Digitization, automation, maybe just-in-sequence production? But do you also think of humans? So humans really being integrated in that Industry 4.0? So that's basically what we do. This is my colleague Sarah, I'm Laura, and we're working at German Bionic. German Bionic is the first German manufacturer of industrial exoskeletons. So basically what we try to do is really to put the focus on the human when it comes to technology. So what is our approach to do that? Actually, back pain is one of the most urgent problems in the world when it comes to diseases. There's a study that shows that almost half of the European workers suffer from lower back pain, actually. So we try to solve that problem with developing an exoskeleton that supports the lower back when you're lifting things. And that's actually what my colleague Sarah will show you now and tell you.
So as Laura told you, we have got more or less 3 use cases which we developed the exoskeleton for. The first one is, of course, lifting of heavy stuff. And for that it's quite hard now with the microphone, but I will try it. So if I go down, I've got different adjustments to make to the exoskeleton. So I can adjust how much support do I want, how fast should it react, how sensitive should the sensors be, and I will just show you. Maybe you can see the support, but actually, I can feel it. So I need to go down, of course, grab it, and then I feel support. It works like, if I go down, I have to do a little movement, and then the crane realizes, okay, Sarah wants to go up, so it's like this, and then it supports me. So what it does is it more or less supports the back X sensors, and the less action I've got in the back X sensors, the less pressures on the spine, and the less, how to say, the last one? Force is on the spine, exactly. The same thing with put it down. I adjusted some counter force, so I don't have to. Of course, I have to use the arms, but my back doesn't have to be that active, I can say, and it kind of slows me down when I want to put something up. The same works when I'm working on something and rotate something. Then I get hold, and I don't have to actively hold my back, hold the trunk, and so.
And what's really interesting about that is the use cases in the industry. So we are already selling our device to the logistics sector, automotive sector, and what is really important for me is that we're supporting those people that are the hardworking people. So those people that go go back at home and having like really back pain because their work is so hard. Not like us being most of the time lucky, hanging around for our before our computers, but really hardworking people. And we're not only developing the exoskeleton, but also a cloud-based platform around that exoskeleton. Basically, that should be one day the start to really implement machine learning into our exoskeleton and to really give it a chance, give it a try to integrate the exoskeleton into a smart factory. Yes, thank you very much. This was our short pitch. I'm happy to hear the questions.
How do you prevent that this is something that helps to turn humans into machines?
How do we prevent that?
I think there could be many kind of negative aspects of turning humans into machines by the help of that. How do you draw a line between a good use case and a bad use case?
Okay, so my background is physiotherapy, and a bad use case would be if we just put this on and then the machine does whatever it wants with us. We don't have the force to adjust it as we want it. And also a bad use case would be when the exoskeleton does like everything and my body doesn't have to work anymore. And that this is not happening. It's an active assistive device. And yeah, we get supported, but we don't get over-supported. So the force which we gain from that device helps us to prevent damage, but we still have to activate our small muscles between the spinal segment and also the big muscles, of course. And so there's still a training effect, but no overtraining or no overstrain. Yeah.
Really cool. I could use it for picking up my daughter from the floor. So I'm wondering about empowering technology, or technology empowering humans. How do you change it between helping you and helping like a 120-kilogram guy?
So basically, all the straps and everything you can see, which is like soft covers, is changeable. So it can fit really nearly 95% of the people from, I think, 1 meter 50. No, let's say 60. How tall are you? 160 to I think 95. so really, yeah, a broad range of sizes. And yes, of course, the support changes a bit. But still, I mean, for Sarah, probably it will be more support than for someone who is already really strong. And yes, what she's showing with her gestures there is that she can really adjust many things on the exoskeleton to make it perfect to your own working area.
Okay. Last quick question, and then we have to move forward.
Sure. So when I think about back problems, I think immediately about behaviors that cause back problems. When you lifted up that crate, you did not bend in the way that I normally would think would be a beneficial way to bend. So how do you ensure that people learn the right behaviors when they're not using your device?
Okay, there's also two aspects. So first, I'm kind of restricted in rotation movements. So that's one thing to prevent undesirable, unwished movement. The other really important thing is actually that people use the cray, or industries use the cray where they can't do perfect ergonomical working conditions. So for example, if there's a huge box and I have to put stuff out of it, I cannot bend my knees because I have to grab into the box really down low. So I have to have straight legs and then go down and bend like this. So this is like really, oh no, I should switch it off. Yeah, so this is like really the most uncomfortable and really bad position you can take. So if you do this without cray, then it's like really shit. And if you do it with cray, it's like really good. So you kind of, you kind of use this when you cannot work economically. So actually, yeah, that's it.
Maybe just one short thing to add.
Very short.
Very, very short. When you go down and bend your knees and lift things up, it also supports you. It's not in the same way, but yes. The only way it wouldn't support you would be if you go down with a really straight back. And really, I do yoga most of the time of my day, but I cannot do this. And yeah, I think nobody can.
Okay, thank you, girls. Big applause for German Bionic. Before we move to the next startup, I would like to ask our jury to introduce themselves a little bit more. Eva, do you want to use this break, a little break, to say who you are?
My name is Eva. I am responsible for startups and venture capital business at Amazon Web Services in Germany, Austria, Switzerland. And prior to that, I spent around 10 years in venture capital, investing mostly in early stage companies in Germany, Central Eastern Europe, and Sweden.
Very cool. Big applause for Ivan. Dominic. Yeah, right now.
Hi, my name is Dominic. I work with a venture capital fund, which is just down the road. And I've been doing that for more or less 10 years now, not with the same firm. From my previous job, I got to know Daria when she was working in investments as well. And I invest broadly in consumer internet startups and startups that cater to B2, many B audiences on the business side.
Kevin.
Yeah, applaud him too.
Guys, I don't have to tell you to applaud. Please be thankful for our jury and applaud all the time. And also for our companies to come.
Okay, you don't have to applaud me. It's okay. So I'm Kevin Adler. I'm the founder and CEO of a nonprofit called Miracle Messages. We help people who are experiencing homelessness reconnect to their loved ones. And we do that by recording short video, audio, and text messages from people to their families and deliver them using a network of volunteer digital detectives. If you don't have plans at 6 o'clock today, which I think hopefully all of you have a somewhat free schedule, I'm giving the closing keynote in the town hall. So come say hi at 6 o'clock.
Thank you. And please welcome the new startup, YURI.
Can I start?
Yeah, please.
All right. We are YURI, and we improve life on Earth here and make humanity ready for future space missions by improving access to microgravity. This is Oliver, professor at the University of Zurich. And Oliver, part of his research is testing medication on cancer cells. Now, obviously, you don't want to test that by giving real cancer cells to living humans. You test that in a lab. So he has that on a tissue. The problem is with cells in a lab, they only grow in 2 directions, in 2 dimensions. So what Oliver actually wants to do is test it in microgravity on the International Space Station. Because without the effects of gravity, cells grow in every direction, and he can do much better and more effective research. The problem is getting up there is a huge pain. It's super complex. You have lots of steps. You have to talk to many different parties, lots of paperwork. It takes a long time. You have to talk to all the certification guys, and the launches are not so often every year. And most important, it's super expensive. It's not only the rocket launch, but all the experiment hardware that you need. So he needs a little box that's very complex that runs the experiment autonomously, because the astronauts, you don't want to rely on them. So that's a huge price point. And that's the problem with getting up there. And Oliver's not alone. Countless scientists around the world want to do groundbreaking research in microgravity, but can't because of this problem. And that's a pity, because there's so much potential. Pharma companies could build better medication against the world's deadliest diseases, and we can build better materials, like fiber cables produced up there is much more performant, and in future it will enable us to even 3D print entire organs. So how can we make this amazing playground for groundbreaking innovations more accessible to more people and to more companies? This is where we come in. YURI makes the access to microgravity simpler, faster, and more affordable. Number one, we have a portfolio of different hardware boxes that fit to almost any type of experiment, and you can run your experiment autonomously there. And most importantly, it's reusable. That means we save a lot of time and cost there. Number two, we have a seamless end-to-end service from start to finish. The customers just talk to us, we put in the hardware, we talk to all the network of our partners, and in the end, of course, we organize the launch, which is the most fun part of our job. And by doing that, thirdly, we not only do ISS, but we also do other platforms like parabolic flights, suborbital rockets, or even space capsules. And with those three factors, we can bring down the price up to 90% compared to what it is today, and bring down the timeline less than half as it is today. And for example, I brought one box for you today. This has been to space, actually. Bringing down this little box with our service costs you less than 100,000 euros and takes less than 6 months. Still sounds quite expensive for a normal person, but in space terms, this is super cheap. The market in general is about 150 million and growing fast because there's more and more use cases coming. It's a great time to be a space startup right now because there's a lot of momentum, a lot of investment going in. And we're a team of mostly space engineers that have been doing that service at Airbus for several years, so we know the process by heart and we know exactly what's wrong about it and how to fix it. And that's our vision to fix it. And if everything goes right, fingers crossed, we're short before closing our first ESA mission, which will fly beginning of next year from Cape Canaveral. To sum it all up, by bringing down complexity, price, and time, we improve access to microgravity and thereby improve life on Earth here, and also from the learnings we take, make humanity ready for future space missions. Thank you.
Cool. Jury, you have 2 minutes for questions.
Seems very high-tech, really cool. But I'm, as an ex-investor, asking myself, is there any other way you can grow 3D or create a microgravity-like environment on Earth that is not as expensive?
There is simulation machines, and we actually developed one, or we're in development of one. So our vision is to become the one-stop shop. We really want to cover everything. And there's a machine called a random positioning machine or a clinostat that kind of turns around, and in a very little volume you have artificial microgravity, which can do part of the job, but it's not the real thing. So you can kind of do the first testing for your cells, whatever, but then you have to go to a drop tower, a flight, or whatever.
Yeah, that was my question. Maybe you could just speak more about why it's so important to be in microgravity and what are some of the findings you find in space compared to in some of those Earth-based simulations?
I mean, the big difference with space and the simulations on Earth is just the time. So if you want to have like little experiments in life science in a very limited way, you can use a parabolic flight, which is like 25 seconds, you do 10 parabolic. But if you want to test plant growth, then you have to go really to like capsules that orbit Earth, because you need at least 10 or 20 days to get any results. So that's the difference. Yeah.
One more question: as an entrepreneur, how hard is it to leave a good job at Airbus and start its own company as a spin-off? Is it something that happens a lot, or
actually not? And that's why unique? Airbus is not used to it. Yeah. So the biggest challenge we have is getting rid of Airbus. They're not making it easy, and it was a 9-month fight actually, because they always wanted to keep us, and then we went to the CEO, then things sped up because he likes us. And then they made us an offer in this high 7-figure, which is crazy. At the same time, Airbus in France offered us money because we were a spin-out. So the same company wants money on the one side and gives us money on the other side. So it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Many thanks.
Thank you.
Dear jury, back to you. Let me ask you, what criteria are important for you today? Maybe, Dominic, you can say a couple of words about that.
Well, I think novelty is a big criteria for me. I saw an exoskeleton for the first time. I would have a lot of questions. A service like that is very innovative. I think there's a high degree of novelty, and that's more than what I normally see working with the pure internet startups. So for me, it's really a new dimension of companies that I see here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, the path of rapid iteration is so important, and just understanding the small choices before building the massive thing to figure out the applicability. Technology is okay, but what's really exciting is solving real problems. So figuring out how the technology can be applied to impact tens of millions, if not billions of lives.
I'm coming back to you with the same question after the pitch. Please welcome Simple Mobility.
Yeah, thank you very much. Awesome pitches, by the way. Let's say our solution is a little bit more based on the problems we have in our cities nowadays. But yeah, still useful, I guess. So I guess all of you are used to being stuck in a traffic jam, being late for work, but the train is not coming on time. Maybe yesterday especially, both applied in Munich. Or you want to go to dinner, but you still have to find a parking spot while your friends are already waiting inside. So yeah, those are all problems we have all in our everyday lives, and which sum up to huge economical problems for the whole economy after all, right? So what are we doing? So you already see a scooter on this slide, and what we really do is we built the world's first one-stop solution for scooter sharing suppliers. So including e-scooters, and not the small ones you see outside, but rather the full-mile solution, which goes up to almost 50 kilometers per hour. But also charging, IT infrastructure, and service and maintenance. So the thing is, I think all of you know scooters already. So why is the world waiting for our technology to actually come out right now? So what you see on this graph over here is, on the one hand, there's a big growth in scooter sharing schemes all over the world. But if you look at the numbers, there are only, like in the end of last year, there were only 62 cities with an active scooter sharing scheme in the cities. So you ask yourself maybe why there's this gap. On the one hand, those scooters are solving a lot of problems, so meaning like traffic jams, pollution, parking spots, and timely traveling within the cities. On the other hand, not many people are applying it. So what are the issues? So on the one hand, if you start off with this, it's a new market, so you have to find a team of competence. They're not many available. So you have to invest a lot of time and money to find a team who's actually capable of setting all the thing up in the very beginning. Then second, you have to find all the hardware parts, meaning you have to find a scooter which has a telematic unit, which works with a certain software again. So, and again, you spend a lot of time and money to find all the things out. And then eventually having things on the street and nobody who's doing the service for you. So there are very few technical services to actually maintain those scooters you have on the street. And last but not least, there's no charging solution for those scooters. Actually, the biggest cost factor you have nowadays when you think about scooter sharing, I think more than 50%. I think some people from Circa here, so they know this probably. So what are we doing differently? So first of all, we developed a charging solution. So we have a simple charge, or the swap charger, meaning you go there with a full empty battery, take out a full one, and just drive off right away. So it takes around 30 seconds. And how current scooter sharing schemes are doing this is they send around diesel vans throughout the city to have people in there manually swapping batteries, so not really economically, and therefore highly costly, and also bad influence on the city. On the other hand, we have the scooter with the battery, of course, fitting to the swap charger, then an API, which you can connect to your software, but also use our software, just like one-stop shop and on the street right away without any further research you have to do before. Yeah, and now you think, so we didn't brought anything today since those things are pretty heavy, but we're pretty far when it comes to the development. So we're Berlin-based, you're always free to visit us and check things out. But yeah, we're already starting our first pilot in September together with our partner T-Labs. Not sure if anybody's here right now, but anyways, X-Ride is launching in Bonn and Berlin in September, and actually that's the first blockchain-based mobility service, meaning like decentralized. And yeah, those are all things you can try out if you don't have to focus on getting things done on the operating and hardware part. So that's mainly it. And yeah, thank you very much.
Dear jury, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, really cool. It reminds me a little bit in the gold rush in San Francisco Bay Area of people coming to mine gold, but then the people who are selling the pickaxes and the tools end up making all the money. So that's an interesting possibility. I think I'm curious your thoughts. If there's one scooter company that ends up just winner takes all, takes over, maybe it's a target for acquisition, but it seems that your model works really well when it's a highly distributed, deregulated, lots of small bite-sized players. What would it look like if there becomes an Uber for scooters worldwide?
Very good question. We asked this to ourselves as well. So the thing is, we are offering a pretty great competitive advantage to any customer of us. This could be like an Uber or a Tier or a Bird, for example, because right now the charging is the most expensive part, right? And they are all not running on a profitable base. So from this point on, where they can really lower their charging costs by almost 70% with our solution, they have such a big competitive advantage that all the other players either have to move to such a technology as well to be in balance with the competition, or just actually have such a big disadvantage. And our hope is, of course, that we can establish our solution with all the players out there. And actually, of course, there's some competition, some may maybe drop out, but in the end, ending up with a economic solution for the company on the one hand, but also for the society and cities, because I think no city wants to have a lot of scooters, damaged scooters, standing around and diesel vans driving around to swap the batteries, right? And I think in the end, well, it's like a win-win situation, I guess.
Dear jury, you have one question left.
So I'm wondering, is there a standard for batteries that all of those providers use today, or are you going to need to work as a kind of evangelist of a standard so that everybody gets on your platform? And how far are you with that?
Well, this is like a typical hack and hen problem. So now I got it. And yeah, so you have to start off with infrastructure, right? So first of all, you have to put a standard on the street, which people couldn't use because nobody would switch to a standard if there's no infrastructure, right? So we start off with infrastructure first, find partners here, and then let people switch to our standard. So of course, right now we have our scooter which fits with our batteries. There's also a special smart battery with special BMS involved here, because it needs to communicate with the charger, with the scooter, and also has its own identity, of course. And so none of the other scooter suppliers have this kind of battery right now. But of course, at one point of time, we are also open to open our standard to other scooter manufacturers, that we have one joint standard. But I think at the core of your idea is, will there be like 20 different charging stations on the street like in 10 years because everyone has their own standard? And that's of course not the plan. So the plan is really create a competitive advantage for those using the standard and then distributing the standard all over all our future partners.
Thank you. Big applause.
Thank you.
So while we're waiting for the next presentation to be uploaded, Eva, would you please share with us what criteria do you look for in the startup?
Sure. Adding on top of novelty, which I think is not an issue in these pitches, and these are highly innovative companies. I think I really look for resilience in the team. If you have linear innovation, I think it's much easier as a team to manage that. If you really work on something disruptive, you're going to have a lot of roadblocks on the way. And if you hold together as a team and overcome those troubles, it shows that you're resilient and that you're able to actually scale that. So I would probe for that quite a bit.
And what would you suggest, like what would be your recommendation for today, for the pitch? You know, if you pitch for 3 to 5 minutes.
For the founders?
Yes.
To really go deep into themselves and understand why they're motivated to do that. The deeper you go into your motivations, the more likely you're going to sustain.
Thank you. Please welcome letsact.
One third of the people in Germany want to volunteer but don't know where and how. On the other side, there are more than 300,000 non-profits who are seeking for volunteers. 1/3 may not be sounding too much, but like in this room it might be about like 30 people. But Germany-wide, there are more than 24 million people who want to take action for a good cause. And as I said, on the other hand, there are enough non-profit organizations who seek helpers to implement their projects. So why is there a gap? Why is there such a mismatch? In a world where you can book a stranger apartment with just one click via platforms like Airbnb, it's super hard and you have to overcome so many barriers to actually taking action for a good cause. So this is why we founded letsact. I'm Ludwig, I'm co-founder of letsact. I founded letsact like 1.5 years ago, and we make it super easy for volunteers to actually take action for a good cause. And our solution, our answer to this question, why there is such a gap and we have to close it, currently, like today, more than 10,000 people have on their smartphones. And on the other side, more than 200 non-profits are trusting on the support of our volunteers. And so let's just take a look. By the way, David said we're the Tinder for volunteering, so we make it really, really easy. And it's, as you can see it here in the demo, it's really easy. You just put your radius, so let's say how flexible you are, and then you see all the projects. And we don't limit ourselves to like some categories. You can do something for environmental stuff. You can do something for education, for refugees, for children, for old people. You can choose where you want to help. And then as you just saw, it's really easy. With just a touch of a button, you're in and you go to the event and you can help. Even though you just have like a couple of hours on a Sunday, for example, you can just see what's around in the app and take action. And so what is our vision? So where do we want to go? We already gave like thousands of volunteers the opportunity to take action for a good cause. And of course, in the future, we also want to empower more people, millions of people, to do so. However, we see ourselves as like empowering people to do good, like as the platform for impact. So what we want to offer in the future is a platform where you have multiple opportunities, also like things like impact investing, so that if you're a person, you want to do something good, you can choose if you do want to volunteer or give money or sign petitions. It's your choice. It's simply one platform for making impact. And this is what is our mission. So letsact is not just like a startup. It's a mission to empower people to take action for a good cause. It's not about talking, but it's really about taking action and hands down volunteer. Thanks.
2 minutes, guys.
Awesome. I did a lot of volunteering. I was 18 years in the fire brigade, which was always very organized. And I like the approach that you're much more flexible when you find providers on your platform. How do you get providers on kind of organizations who put in projects where they seek volunteers for? How do you onboard them and how do you select them?
Exactly. So if you see this more or less on marketplace, so you got the current problems you got with the marketplace, you first have to get the supply. And of course, we first called the non-profits, but now we're working with big non-profits together and also with corporations of current like agencies who currently do the matching on a really manual and offline basis. And therefore, we can have a lot of projects with like just one click because they can import the current ones from different databases to just like one platform.
And then on the other hand, how do you vet people that come, especially if you're dealing with weak target groups? So if you're dealing with elderly people and especially kids, how do you make sure that, I don't know, a pedophile doesn't come?
Exactly. So we verify the organizations. So they have to be a non-profit, and the non-profit is like verified by the government. And we also verify the projects. And what we also do is that the organizations, they have one project, but it could be a recurring one or it could be a once project. They can also have sometimes, for example, if you talk about working with children, then they would normally require by law that they have to give you like a checkup if you did something criminal in the past, and you will provide them that in front. So they will just adjust a little bit the attributes of the project so that you first have to upload your criminal stats, and then you're in.
So there's sometimes a difference between intention and action. One-third of people say they'll do something, fewer than one-third will actually do it. What makes you so confident that the market size is as big as you say it is?
It's an interesting point. So, like, of course, it's easier to say, I want to do something, and then actually going out and do so. But what we saw, not only from like this statistic, which is also a government statistic, but also from our users, is that out of our users, more than 20% have already taken action. And this is an enormous amount. If you compare it to, I don't know, stats like Meetup, where there is like probably less than 5%, it's a huge readiness of the people that they actually go out there and help. And this is because we make it so easy. Currently, the process is just too long, and you will fail somewhere in between down between the road. But because it's so easy, and you can just sign up with the touch of a button, we got really, really high amount of people who actually volunteer. And it has proven also with higher number of user numbers to be quite static.
Thank you very much. So, Kevin, now I have a question for you.
Great.
So you came all the way from San Francisco to us, and it's actually the second time at least you're participating in a German, conference in Munich. So I wonder, how do you see the difference between, the two ecosystems?
Yeah, it's a good question. So my background before doing work in the homeless space was in the tech space, startups, specifically ed tech. And one thing I've noticed at this conference and 2 years ago at the Home, where I gave the closing keynote, in a lot of the presentations, I hear people defining what they're good at and what they're not good at. And I'm not familiar with that way of speaking in the Bay Area. You kind of say, well, here's what needs to get done, and we're going to do it, and we're going to learn how to do it. And so I would just encourage, I guess, for whatever it's worth, not selling yourself short. I see in the presentations even this morning, there's this narrow-mindedness of what, and specifically some of the German presenters, what a German entrepreneur is good at and what they're not good at. And to me, that's total bullshit. There's culture, there's history, there's norms that maybe promote a certain behavior, but you can be the exception, and if it's needed to be the exception, be that exception. So,
thank you very much. So, gridx, be an exception.
So thanks for having me. I think my story is a little bit different today than the other startup pages, and it's about how a blackout I experienced in Ecuador almost 4 years ago is saving the world. And it starts with my best friend and co-founder David and me. We were doing a buddy trip right after university. We studied 5 long years engineering, just wanted to have some freedom and travel around. And we were almost done, so I still had to send in my thesis, my final thesis, to my professor. And as we always do, we do it on the last second. And I can remember this day. It was the 15th of August, 2015, and I had 2 hours left to send in this one final thesis to get everything done. And I was sitting in this building on the top left. It's like a remote village in Ecuador, but it had internet, and it worked. And while I was writing that email, all of a sudden, boom, blackout. No lights, no internet, no phones charging, nothing. And while we thought, well, that will only take a couple of minutes, it'll come back, don't worry. And after like half an hour, I really started to panic because I had like 1 hour left to send in that final thesis. And David and me, we were going outside, and there were 2 guys climbing up this one roof on the top left. They were throwing down cables that you see over there. And what they did is, they connected solar systems, solar panels that were on that roof. They somehow put them together, and we had energy. We had internet. Yeah, it worked. So light again. And that was a big moment. And since we are both engineers, we looked at each other and we thought, wow, this is magic. I mean, no internet, a power grid doesn't work, but they have solar here. and it works to send in that final thesis. And speaking for motivation, we really ask ourselves, well, what's happening in Germany? And we figured out in Germany, we have 1.6 million solar systems installed already today. And that really equals 30 nuclear power plants. I mean, we have 30 nuclear power plants generating energy from the sun today. And we were asking ourselves, well, still one of the biggest producers of coal, CO2. Why do we do that? And we figured out, well, the grid is just not ready for bidirectional energy flow. It can't handle millions of decentralized energy resources to feed energy back into the grid. It can't handle it. It's too old, too legacy. And I worked in IoT during that time, and I said, well, what if we could take all of those decentralized energy resources, PV panels, wind parks, battery systems, heat pumps, EVs, and just connect it with one little hardware device, like a router for energy. And we built this little device, it's called gridx. We connected thousands of appliances to one central platform, to our cloud platform, running on AWS for that part, really scalable. And we enabled different use cases, home energy management use cases. We enable more EV charging infrastructure in the grid. We enable that supermarkets are being optimized with PV, with EV charging infrastructure. And we do that by giving people dashboards, control rooms to actually control all of those devices. And all that together, the gateway, the platform, the dashboards, the control rooms, that's all our platform that we built. It's an energy IoT platform. And from a product perspective, it consists of this hardware device. We built it ourselves as engineers, really soldering all the parts together, building up cloud infrastructure, really scalable, generating and processing billions of data points each day, and then putting all of that in nice-looking dashboards in control rooms for organizations, grid operators, utilities, OEMs like Viessmann, really using that technology to steer where energy is going and coming from. And use cases that we enable, Viessmann is actually selling that solution. It's called Independent Home. It's a home energy management system that combines heating, solar, battery storage. Same for commercial buildings, where really supermarkets, I think in Germany, everyone knows Aldi, using that technology to control all energy flows inside the building. And our vision at gridx is that every distributed energy resource, every device generating energy, consuming energy, will be connected and will be optimized in the new energy age. We are building the platform for that. That's why I believe we are saving the world. So please do me a favor and vote on the app for us. And really happy to be part of this. Thank you. Sorry?
Please, jury, 2 minutes.
I'm curious about the interoperability of the distributed energy resources. I'd assume that some DERs are better than others. Not all are created equal. What have you found in terms of mining the energy through your gateway in these different DERs?
So when you start out as a startup, I mean, we thought, brilliant idea, going to be millionaires in a couple of months, basically. It's really hard to integrate with all those little devices. Yeah, we have integrated more than 1,000 products to date, but it's a tough job and it's a linear scaling job because you have to support more protocols and do all that. So I think today it's one of our USPs because we invested more than 3 years into developing that integration, but it's really a hard part to do. And what we see is that each manufacturer is doing its own thing, speaking a different language. So we are basically handling that complexity for our customers, and that's why they buy us, actually.
What's your next big milestone ahead that you're working on for next year?
So for us right now, we are only active in Germany. We are selling to B2B partners or channel partners to distribute their solutions to millions of people. And our next step is to go to the US, to China, and really scale out that system globally.
But does that mean you do that because Germany is not saturated, and are you going internationally because the German market is more or less saturated for the solution you have right now?
It's not saturated, but when David and me, we were basically traveling through Ecuador, we had one thing that we shared, and we said, well, we want to have impact. We want to have impact and really change how energy is being produced and consumed. And I don't see why we shouldn't scale out if we have the technology and if we have the structure from the company. It's just we want to go big and we want to have impact.
But can you still scale factor 100x in Germany?
We can scale around 50 to 70x in Germany. Yeah.
Last question or no questions?
A similar question to the first one. I guess it's not only about feeding back the energy to the system, but it's also about storage and load balancing that needs to happen in the system. How are you working with utilities today to enable the back end of your solution?
Super important part, because that's our biggest obstacle, regulation. Energy is the largest industry in Germany. It's $520 billion each year. And there are a lot of people protecting their business. So regulation is a huge part, lobbyists are a huge part. And first, we got one investor, one strategic investor, the largest energy supplier in Germany on our shareholder list, cap table, to get access to basically that basis. And it's a tough part. You have to do a lot of negotiation. And for us, it's cooperation with those partners. Yeah. We don't want to put them out of business. We want to give them our technology so they can make more business, and then they're open to open doors for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Dominic, I would like you work for Acton Capital. It's a venture capital firm based in Munich. Why do you think that it's a good place to start a tech startup today in Munich?
In Munich, well, it's the best place in Europe, of course, because you have the big all the big companies here who have been developing tech for many decades, and at the same time you have a very entrepreneurially oriented university ecosystem here. And yeah, of the companies I have invested, a lot of them are in Berlin, but it's mostly internet companies. So I would say for a tech company, Munich has, through being close to big corporations like Siemens and having the university here with a lot of technical history, it's the best place in Western Europe to do that.
Very good. We totally agree. And please welcome Smokeless, Daniel from Smokeless, also a Munich-based company.
The tobacco epidemic is one of the biggest problems the world has ever faced. In fact, every 5 seconds, one person dies from the consequences of smoking. That sums up to over 6 million a year. Last year, 700 million people tried to quit smoking. The hard reality is 96% fail. So why is that? The reason is that smoking addiction consists of two components: the physical addiction to the drug nicotine, as well as the mental addiction. And in order to successfully quit smoking, you need to consider both components at the exact right time. The problem is nobody's doing that. So we built a radical new approach. To tackle the physical addiction, To tackle the physical addiction, we have developed a smart inhalation device that analyzes your smoking behavior, develops a tailor-made plan, and then, without you doing anything, step by step, fully automated, reduces the nicotine intake gradually in such small steps that you don't suffer withdrawal symptoms. And without withdrawal symptoms, it is easier to change the behavior. To take care of the mental addiction, we have developed a smokeless program that tells you exactly what to do and lead to a behavior change. In order to be motivated, we use gamification and peer pressure. That means you invite family members and friends, you can compete in challenges, you can see your own progress, earn awards, and get support from your beloved ones. In fact, we built the first holistic device that combines both components in one single product in a unique way that conquers all known reasons for failure. Since January last year, we officially passed the $1 trillion mark of economic damage. It's 600 billion from direct related costs to treatment and 400 billion because of early death and productivity loss. At the moment, we do have 1.1 billion smokers spending more than 12 billion on withdrawal products that don't work. These numbers are going to grow to 1.5 billion smokers within the next 7 years. The most important thing is we don't only take care that you become smoke-free, but that you also stay smoke-free. We have an after smokeless program that kind of guides you through your life as a companion to really make sure you don't get back. We started 12 months ago, raced around, built a mass manufacturable device, and are approaching the launch by the end of the year. We are supported by a couple of people to make this happen with expertise in different branches, as well as different advisors, like Marco, he's CEO from Beurer, it's a big medical device company in Germany, as well as the tobacco ambulance in Munich, who helps us developing the therapy. But who are we actually? It's Michael, our designer, Patrick as our techie, and I'll take care of the business stuff. And we deeply believe that smokeless is not a technology, but a movement to save people's lives.
Do you smoke?
No, not yet, not anymore.
Not yet.
Yeah, for a fun thing, we say, I didn't smoke, Michael smoked, and Patrick is trying to smoke to test our solution, but...
Did you get rid of smoking with smokeless?
Not with the technology itself, but using the kind of theory approach behind it to use the physical thing as well as the mental side.
Got it. And my question is about the data that you presented. Where's that data from? Did you actually have a trial with a group of people that used that? How do you know
What exactly, the 96% failure rate? Or?
Yeah, that you're more effective versus all of those companies that don't manage.
The trial is coming in the future, but what we are doing is we are not reinventing science. It is well proven how to reduce nicotine in the perfect way. It is well proven that gamification works, and it is even in the guidelines for tobacco cessation to use both. And we're developing the technology to make this happen. There was no technology who could satisfy all the features science requested.
So you're going to be testing that in the trial?
We are going live anyway, because moving to our solution, we can't hurt people, it only gets better, and then we're doing a post-market clinical follow-up to prove that we are more effective than everything that is out there.
Yeah, I mean, first, way to sell a vision, which is exciting. It seems like it's going to come down to, does this get people to quit? Do they stay off it? And how does that rate compare to other products out there? Yeah. Would you agree with that?
I think it's not a 0 or 1 way to make people stop smoking. The best way is to make them stop smoking, but if you can't make that happen, try to get less harmful alternatives. The problem with e-cigarettes right now, everybody is hailing them, that they're so good for society. This is true if only smokers who smoke tobacco quit and not people start smoking. This is not happening with smokeless, so we try to cure all of them, but if we can't, a 95% less harmful life is not a bad thing either.
And in Q4 when you launch,
yes.
Big fanfare, you don't hit the numbers. What's going to be the reason you wouldn't hit the numbers if you end up not hitting the numbers? What's the biggest risk right now?
With every B2C company, I think it's getting that traction, that virality, but for that reason we are also working with insurance companies. Insurance market in Germany is one of the hardest, but if you crack it, it's 70 million people who are insured, 14 million out of them smoke, and with the new Prevention Act, our way into the insurance is paved. So
I guess I'm just curious how that matters the most, because even if you have 1,000 people or 100 people, if 95% of them quit and stay off it, that would seem like a great validation to build from there rather than getting tons of numbers.
Absolutely. We'll have the first beta test, which is not called clinical trial due to legal reasons, end of July, so we can prove a lot of stuff by the end of July too.
What would prevent, if you don't hit that success rate in those 100 people or those 10 people, what would be the cause of it?
Well, having no success would mean that there is 0 people quitting, because if you save 1 life, that's enough for us.
Okay, thank you very much. Big applause for Daniel, also for all the startups in our amazing jury. We are done with the first startup competition part. The second is at 3:30. And please don't forget to vote. Your voice counts, as always. Thank you very much, guys. See you soon.
Switch it off.